Hey, Warrior Nation, on today's Nile Speaks blog, I'm discussing Gen X during this time of Great Resignation and upskilling as it relates to the future of work. Gen X, if you aren't upskilling, what are you doing? Hi, I'm Nile Harris. I am a coach, advisor, speaker, and educator working with businesses, entrepreneurs, and professionals to transform your passion and purpose into profit by helping you master your mind and learn how to treat your business like a business. And before we get started on Gen X and upskilling and the future of work, please take a moment to follow and engage with me at I am Nile Harris on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can also find me on Clubhouse. And if you find this of value, this discussion today, please be sure to hit the like, share it, and mention someone in the comments and let me know what you think. So let's get started with Gen X and the Great Resignation and upskilling. Now, what do I mean by upskilling? First, let me just define that. When I talk about upskilling, I am talking about how we are developing ourselves as the future of work evolves, as the current state of work evolves. So as new technologies become available, as new trends, new ways of thinking become available, upskilling just simply means that your skill set is keeping pace. You're not being stagnant in the skills and the things that you can do. And one of the biggest groups that need to upskill are Gen X, or is Gen X, and I'm Gen X. And let me tell you, give you a little bit of context about the landscape that's happening. The World Economic Forum cited that there are their top 10 skills that they are seeing that companies want right now and going into the future and the future of work. Now, 2020 showed us lots of stuff, right? So when we look at the Great Resignation, that was brought about in some ways by 2020 and the pandemic. But the thing is, the urge or the necessity was always under the surface. 2020 and the pandemic just allowed that to come forward. People are starting to resign from jobs, not simply because of unemployment benefits. They're starting to resign from jobs where the managers and the leadership aren't good, where they're being made to work 50, 60, 70 hours with very little work-life balance, underappreciated, unrecognized, no opportunities or few opportunities to develop and move up. And Gen X has felt the squeeze of this even prior to the pandemic. Gen X is kind of the invisible generation. We're forgotten about as we waited for the boomers to begin retiring so we can move up in the workforce and move up with our development. We found that we were starting to compete with millennials. Also, another trend that is impacting Gen X more than any other generation, of course, is now we're starting to age out. And what that means is because Gen Xers are in their mid to late 40s, we are being seen as not fit for today's jobs, and there's an assumption before we're even interviewed or screened, there's an assumption that we're not fit technology wise or thinking wise, and that we're just sort of stuck. And a lot of times we're not getting the interview because of that. It's because of this age discrimination, which also impacts the boomers as well. You're seeing people sort of modify their resumes, keeping years off of the times that they graduated, just so they can get around that pervasive assumption. Other part of that is companies feeling, well, we can hire younger people with less experience for less money than what we would have to pay a Gen X or a boomer. So some companies see it as cost-saving measures. What impact does this have on Generation X, especially during the Great Resignation? Now, here's the thing about the Great Resignation. Again, like I said, lots of people are leaving because they want better work-life balance. They want to work from home. They're finding like, I don't have to put up with this really bad manager or this bad leadership or this bad company. We could go. Who is taking advantage of the Great Resignation the most? Article that just came out this week that had an anecdotal sort of survey found that Gen Xers and boomers are staying put. Gen Z and millennials are out the door. And here's the thing about that. Millennials The oldest millennials will turn 40 this year, are turning 40 this year. And those oldest millennials are probably the closest to Gen Xers. So they're called Zennials. And it is interesting that the millennials are out the door while Gen Xers are staying put. I would be interested to know where the Zennials are doing. And Zennials are probably doing a bit of a split since they do identify with Gen X. However, they also identify with millennials. Millennials and Gen Z, they're saying, I don't want to give my life to this job. I don't want to come in here, sit at my desk, or do whatever the task is, be underpaid, underappreciated, and have to work for somebody who's a tyrant, frankly. The other sort of contributing factor to the Great Resignation, as I've mentioned, is this void of leadership, this gap of leadership that has been talked about by multiple, it's been talked about by the McKinsey report, Harvard Business Review, the Gallup, it's been talked about and talked about. And this gap of leadership comes, and I've talked about this before, when people who have an individual contributor mindset are promoted into positions of leadership. They don't develop. They got into that position because they were in the right place at the right time. They knew how to manage up, or it was a just sort of like put somebody in, we have to move this person on because they're sort of a problem. So we'll just promote them to get them out of the way. That's called failing up. That's what's kind of created this dearth. And so now we're seeing more companies invest in coaching, external coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching to come in and coach those leaders because they can no longer afford the turnover. Recruiters are inundated trying to find great talent. And also, candidates are not putting up with these multiple rounds of interviews anymore. They're not putting up with doing performance tasks that take 2-3 hours and doing free work. There are companies out there that will send you a performance task of a real problem and use candidates' ideas. Candidates aren't doing that anymore. But boomers and Gen Xers, again, let's get back to that, are staying put. Here's the issue with that. Does that mean that they are staying put and upskilling, adding more of what they need into their bucket of skills, or are they just staying put because they feel safe? And I don't want Gen Xers to be stuck, and I don't want you to feel safe. When we look at, first of all, what are the top 10 skills that are coming up? Technology and soft skills. It is essentially a blend of technology and soft skills. Employers want people that can use their Zoom, use the basic package of what's on their computer, Word, converting a Word document into a PDF. I saw this TikTok where it was probably a Gen Z person or maybe a younger millennial who was saying she was sitting at her desk and somebody who gets paid 3 times, 4 times as much as her, asking her how to convert a Word document into a PDF. I'm going to be honest. I work with people across all of the generations, and there is a dearth of skill across all of the generations. Millennials and Gen Z don't just automatically have tech skills, and boomers and Gen X just don't automatically not have tech skills. There is a bit, I think, of, again, that assumption that's being made that some of the most tech savvy people on the team will be the Gen Zers and the millennials, when Gen Xers have been the only generation that really has had to adjust and adapt to a changing work environment, from having no internet, no email, or very little email, to having like all the things now. So the top 10 skills are about blending. In Gen X, this is where I need you to pay attention. Yes, having the soft skills are important because we've sort of gone into this very tech heavy, this sort of social media and marketing and everything. We are seeing the dearth of leadership skills and abilities. 2020 unveiled a whole gap around empathy and vulnerability. And now companies are investing in coaches like me to coach their leaders and how to have empathy, not how to have empathy, but how to better display the empathy and how to be more vulnerable. And part of Gen X learned about the professional world from boomers and the pervasive attitude is you come to work, you work hard, then you go home, you retire, you die. Like that's plan A. Millennials and Gen Z are bringing a whole different dimension, and Gen X is caught square in the middle, which is why we cannot afford to be stuck and stay put in this great resignation, because the great resignation allows Gen Xers to have a great revelation and a great revolution when it comes to what we bring to the workforce. The other top skills is bringing, there's lots and lots of data, right? The internet and all of this technology brings with it gajillions of data. What companies need more of now are people who can look at that data, pull out insights, and tell stories about it. Companies are saying we need people not just who are great presenters, but that can tell stories about information, that can provide influence to the leadership, that they can work with data scientists and translate that into trends and insights and stories that leadership can use to make data-driven decisions, communicate better with customers, craft better strategy, and execute with confidence. That's one of the big skills. So they want more wisdom that comes with that, and they'll pay for the more wisdom. The millennials, the older millennials, they're coming up on 40. So they have a lot of experience, and they also bring with that experience the flexibility to upskill. They bring with it the willingness to adapt that Gen Xers may not be bringing to it. So you see Gen Xers, who I work with lots of Gen Xers that don't, well, I don't know TikTok, I don't know this, I don't know how to do that. And that's fine. What's not fine is the lack of initiative or the lack of desire to learn those things. And those are the people that are going to be eclipsed by the millennials and Gen Z, because we have to bring all of it together. The other part of having these soft skills, these analysis skills, storytelling, bringing insight and wisdom and experience to the hard data is the tech skills. And we're not saying, and I'm not talking about the coding. Coding is definitely upcoming, not even upcoming, right? It is growing and growing. When we talk about coding, when we talk about making applications and things like that, that is definitely there. But what companies are talking about in tech skills is they no longer have the patience for people who don't know how to use Google or Microsoft or just some basic that are now things that are now basic technology. The amount of people that had to learn how to use Zoom or WebEx or things like that, they want people who come to the table with the basic tech skills, period. Companies no longer want to train for that. They want to train on the more advanced skills that are necessary for a person's particular role. Not here, take this Excel spreadsheet class. Those are the things that you need to be doing on your own time. If you need to be spending more time on how to make better PowerPoints, what are the tips and tricks there? There are tons of classes. A lot of them are free or inexpensive. You can go to LinkedIn and go to LinkedIn Learning and get a lot of that. And companies will pay for you to do it on your own, but they're no longer looking at people, considering people that just don't come to the table with the basic tech skills and a little bit more advanced skills. I saw Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, on the Sharks show where people pitch their businesses. One of the things, somebody asked him, what is the skill set that he thinks is the most important? What would he have studied in school? And he said, if you had asked him maybe a decade ago, or when he was younger, he would have said engineering. Engineering would have been what he said would be the growing field. He said today, he would say what he sees rising are the creative roles, the creative skills. So being able to tell a story, make videos, write, right? Write long form, write short form, do copywriting. The arts, the people who studied arts or can be creative, those are the people that they're starting to see more of a need for, because the technology people can build the apps, they can build the platforms, they can create the websites. They need the creative people who bring forward the insights. They need the people who have some of the soft skills to figure out, well, what are the insights? And then you need people who can help market those insights, help tell stories about those insights, either through creating videos or data visualization. Data visualization is huge because having somebody put a bunch of numbers on a slide or a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet in front of you, you kind of get overwhelmed. And people are just collecting tons and tons of data. I work in organizations and work with organizations where they're collecting all this data, and they will come and they will show up and they will dump all this data. And I will just be, if I'm a consumer of the data and I'm asking you, what do you want me to take away from this? Those are the people. They need the data translators. They need the creative people to have more presence there. So let me land this plane for you. What, as a Gen X person, when you're talking about upskilling, where should you be focusing your time? Number one, coaching. Coaching isn't frou-frou. It's not something that, oh, if I have time for that, I get coaching. Some of the most successful people in the world get coaching. Focus on executive and leadership coaching to help you hone in on your leadership skills. Because if you are not a good leader, people are going to leave your organization faster. People aren't putting up with that anymore. They're not even waiting an obligatory 2 years. They'll wait 2 months, or sometimes in some cases, I've heard people leaving in 2 weeks. It's just not being put up with anymore. And if your company sees that turnover and that churn, they are no longer likely to turn a blind eye to it, because we know that there are plenty of companies that have seen high rates of turnover with some of their leaders and they just look away, right? That's not going to happen anymore because it is expensive to find people, and it is getting harder and harder right now during this time to find and hire the right people. So invest in coaching, executive and leadership coaching. Even if you're not a people leader, prepare for it. Prepare for it. I posted about this a while ago that people, when you're a good leader, you're ready for leadership when your mindset switches from individual contributor to leader. And there are some things in there that talk about like what makes somebody a leader. And going from I to we is a great indication that you are making that transition. Focus on coaching. Number two, upskill in your technology. It's no longer acceptable to say, well, I don't know how to convert a document into a PDF. It's just not acceptable to not be able to conduct a search on the internet or some other things that are now considered basic. When I get it, when I was a Gen X and I entered the workforce, I worked in securities trading. The system I had to know was my trading system. I had to know my quote system. I had to know how to put in trades, but the rest of my computer, they didn't care if I knew how to use it or not, but I did. And over time, I invested and learned how to do better, how to make better PowerPoint presentations. What are some tips and tricks in Excel? What are the things that I need to do to be sure that I am hitting those basic? And I was doing a lot of stuff outside of work. There was a time when I wasn't in my job, I wasn't really being fully utilized in terms of my skill set, and I needed more of a creative outlet. I learned how to make websites. I learned about digital marketing and social media platforms. And I learned like a lot of these little sort of like really technical things. And I was able to bring those skills into work and demonstrate them. And I ended up creating, web pages or encouraging more social media, putting together Excel dashboards to visualize data. The number 3 place that you need to increase your skills or upskill is storytelling. It's the creative storytelling. Video is it. Like video, the future of work, the future of companies doing well, the future of your personal brand, video is where it is. Quick videos, storytelling videos, increase your creativity. Now, I'm not saying you have to go learn how to paint something, but like I explained before, when I didn't have a lot of creative outlet at work, I started doing things like writing blogs, starting to do videos, creating more content on LinkedIn, creating more content on Instagram, Pinterest, right? I started to create more content. And the more I created, the more creative I got. And I was already a creative person, but not in the realms that we are seeing. But this is the future of work. This is where Gen X people, you will be left behind. We will be left behind if we are not able to get on LinkedIn, get on social media, and have a presence, because companies are, whether they tell you or not, they're actually going out to see if you have a presence. If you've applied for multiple jobs lately, they are asking for that LinkedIn profile. It's no longer, and a lot of times it's required, right? You're required to put in that. They're looking to see what your network is, where are you posting, and they're not looking for a gotcha. They're looking to see your expertise. They're looking to get a sense of you outside of your work. And they're looking to get a sense of what your expertise is. If you say you are good at making video, but there are no videos anywhere on your timeline, that's kind of a red flag for them. So those are like 3 areas that we need to be upskilling. The 4th area is personal brand. I just met with a tech organization where I gave them a talk for how to build their personal brand. Another area that I don't see Gen X's doing this is putting your brand out there, building a personal brand. We, and I include myself in this, we bought into plan A, which was graduate from high school, go to college, get a good job, check all the boxes, wait for for boomers to start retiring. We'll move up, we'll be leaders, and then we'll do that thing, we'll retire, and then we'll just sit around and wait to die. Like, we bought into that. I bought into that up until a few years ago when I realized plan A was not meant to benefit us, it was meant to benefit from us. And the millennials and the Gen Zers are breaking free of that plan and creating their own roadmap. And we need to be there, because studies show that companies started by people over the age of 35 into their 40s are successful 10 years out. So we have the wisdom, we have the expertise, but we're not telling anybody. It doesn't matter if you never want to start your own business. Personal branding doesn't have to be about being an entrepreneur or a side hustler. Having your personal brand is your calling card to other opportunities. People will contact you and reach out to you and say, oh, I saw this on LinkedIn, or I saw that you're doing this. They may never engage with your post. And this is another thing. LinkedIn, at least go on to LinkedIn. And if you're saying, well, people don't like my posts or people aren't engaging with your posts, people still see it. Most of the people on LinkedIn are just scrolling through and they're never interacting with your content. They're never interacting with your content. They will engage with your content if you put something out there that they really like, or they want to be sure that they're keeping up with you, or they'll go look at your profile. But most of them people are not engaging with content on LinkedIn. That does not mean that you should not be putting content out there. So of all the social media platforms, I am not suggesting that you do all the trendy dances on TikTok, or that you start posting all these reels and things on Instagram or stories. I am saying at least focusing on your personal brand, getting your LinkedIn profile together, having a great headshot, updated headshot, a cover, having your bio written, and having your experiences there, because people are looking. And Gen Z and millennials, they're knocking that out of the park. That's it, Gen X. I do not want you to be stuck. I do not want you to miss your opportunity that the Great Resignation provides us an opportunity to upskill, reevaluate, revolutionize our generation, evolve. Don't let this moment pass you by, because millennials and Gen Zs are actively positioning themselves for the future of work. In Gen X, we still have a long way to go. So Focus on those 4 areas of upskilling. If you found this helpful, please drop me a like, drop some thoughts down in the comments, share or mention this content with other people. Follow me at I am Nile Harris, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can also find me at Twitter, on Clubhouse. I am where you are. I'm in all the places, but please be sure to follow me and let's keep this conversation going. I'm a coach, educator, speaker, helping you transform your passion and purpose into profit by helping you master your mind and helping you learn how to treat your business like a business. And by the way, if you are a business. You are a business. Whether you own a business or you are a willing employee, you're a business. I'll see you back here next time, Warrior Nation.